Jodi here. Today I'm going to bring to you my favorite homemade pizza dough recipe. I've had people ask what I typically would use to make pizza with, and this is the hands down recipe I use all the time. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit airier. It's got a great flavor actually, and it's not real difficult to make. What you need for this is a cup of water, but you want it to be warm because you're going to activate the yeast in it. If you use cold water, the yeast is not really going to activate well. So make sure it's warm. So a cup of warm water. You're going to use 1.5 teaspoons of sugar and 1 tablespoon of the dry active yeast. Then you're going to want 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. Now, I've also used sesame oil, I've used sunflower oil. They change the flavor of the pizza dough a little bit. So go ahead and kind of fool around, experiment a little bit, see what it is you like. I traditionally use the olive oil though, just because olive oil is good with so many things. Then you want 1 teaspoon of salt. After that, you're going to come back and you're going to use 2.5 cups of flour, which I've measured out here already. And that's it for your ingredients. So what you want to do first is take your warm water and put it in. If you're using a mixer, put it in the mixing bowl with the dough hook. If you're mixing it by hand, that's fine as well. Just use a wooden spoon. You want to add your 1.5 teaspoons of sugar. And I just give it a little stir. Now you want to take your tablespoon of yeast and you want to scatter it over the top of that. So as it's scattering, kind of spread it around. And we're going to want to leave that sit for about 15 minutes. You want your yeast to start looking a little bubbly, kind of flour a little bit. So we're going to let that sit and come back and take a look at it once that yeast has really started to bloom and activate. Okay, so this is what you want your yeast to start looking like. I don't know if you can see here that it's actively blooming. It's like little explosions of the yeast granules themselves that begin to bloom. And as soon as you get most of them bloomed, broken down, you can start moving forward with your recipe. Okay, we've now got the yeast activated, and the next step is to kind of finish putting the base together. You want to first take your teaspoon of salt, sprinkle it right into your bowl. And your 1.5 tablespoons of your oil. And again, I usually use olive oil, but like I mentioned, you feel free to give it a try with a sesame or sunflower or something with just a different flavor and see how you like it. And you just want to give that a quick turn in. So put that into your mixture. Then you're going to want to add your 2.5 cups of flour. And you just dump it right in. You don't have to add it gradually. There you go. Now you just want to slowly start the process. Flour can kind of get dusty and jump out if you turn it on too high right away. You just want to get it mixed in, and if you're doing it again by hand, use your wooden spoon and just kind of get it mixed in. It's going to be kind of crumbly, kind of stringy. It's not going to come together as a complete dough. Okay. Take this part here, and this is kind of what you're looking at here. It's a little messy. Just want to kind of scrape around, get that flour, the last of the flour, to kind of stick to that crumbly ball you've got in there. And the next thing you're going to want to do then is you're going to You're going to want to get it out onto your floured board, countertop space, whatever works for you is good. And you're going to want to knead it for about 3 minutes. And I always keep a side container of flour because it is messy. You're going to be using it quite a bit. It's kind of built into the recipe. You want to be generous with the flour when you're dusting. So I use a side container so I'm not sticking my hands back into the canister with the pizza dough crumbs kind of falling out, getting into it. Alright. And of course with doughs, it's time just to get your hands in there and go after it. And I'm just kind of rolling it around to get the, some last crumbs that are kind of stuck in that little bottom area. And again, be very generous with your flour. And you just go ahead and you want to knead it. Just kind of fold it in on itself. And it's going to seem quite sticky at first. And that's okay. It actually is a sticky dough. Stickier. So go ahead and knead it. And you're going to, at first, use more flour. Eventually, you're not going to use that much flour. So we'll go ahead and take care of this for about 3 minutes. And then we'll go on. Okay, now that you've got your dough kneaded into this nice little ball, the next thing you're going to want to do is take a little bit of oil and just run it around a bowl of some sort, because you're going to let it rise in here. And the reason you want the oil is so that it doesn't stick to the bowl or this, and you want it up the sides a little bit. So just kind of run your oil around. And I like these little containers. I buy them at the dollar store or whatever, and you just refill them with your oil. So it's easy to pour, easy to work with, not lugging a big jar around. Okay. Want your dough in the bowl and just turn it, kind of coat the whole ball with your oil just so that it doesn't stick. And then you're going to want to cover it with plastic wrap. You're going to let it rise for an hour and 15 minutes or so. And to let your dough rise, you want to put it in kind of a warm space where it's not going to be disturbed with a lot of airflow. I always rise my dough in the microwave, simply because you're not going to have a lot of movement, you're not going to have people disturbing it, you're not going to have a lot of sunlight or other extraneous factors. It just sits there completely undisturbed. So I'm going to put this in the microwave for about an hour and 15 minutes. Then we're going to come back and we're going to take a look at it at that point and go on to the next step. Okay. Now we're back, and as you can see, the dough has been rising for roughly an hour and 15 minutes, and it's quite a bit bigger. It's roughly doubled in size. So you're going to want to take that out. Make sure your work surface is clean again. Reflour. Don't need quite as much this time. Just dump that out onto the surface. And you're going to want to split this now and repackage it. It needs to rise again for another 45 minutes. So what I do as a rule of thumb with this particular recipe size is I first cut it in half. And I save 1/2 for a large pizza, for the family size. And then I cut the other half again. And I use that for individual sizes. And you wrap them in cellophane very loosely. You want room for expansion. Just kind of cover that up. But be mindful that there's a lot of oil in here. It will kind of drip out these sides. So leave the bottom side down as it is. Just kind of fold the plastic up over it and leave that side down. And here's the large. So I'm going to put it back in the microwave for another 45 minutes. And it's going to rise again. And we will come back and check to see how it's doing. Okay, now we're back, and the dough has been rising for roughly 45 minutes. So we're going to actually take one of the small ones and roll out a pizza. And again, you're going to want that right on your countertop or on your flat board. And use your flour generously. Just make sure your surface is clean before you use it. Again here. Just going to slowly roll it out. If it sticks, just add some more flour. Be very generous with your flour. Now, I don't know about you, but one thing I've never been good at is making perfectly round pizzas. Just doesn't happen. I get away with a much more rectangular shape. So I can pass that off. So I make my pizza square or rectangle. You just roll it out. Now you can roll it to whatever thickness you want. Get it as thin as you want, or you can leave it rather thick. Now I'm going to put this on the prepared pan. Now this pan I've sprayed with pan spray. You either spray it with pan spray or you flour it generously with more flour. And either way is fine. There we go. Got on my pan. Not close to perfect, but it never is. And you just top it however you like. In this case, I'm going to use pizza sauce, standard pizza sauce. I've used Alfredo sauce before, and that's actually not been bad, surprisingly. And this is the fun part, because you put on whatever you want, how much you want of whatever it is. So we're going to get a whole lot of sauce on this one. And the nice thing about getting the pizza sauce in the jar is that you just put the lid on and put it back in the fridge. If you get, if you happen to get the ones with the can, in the can, just put it in a Rubbermaid Tupperware plastic container with a lid. Whatever's left over, put that in the refrigerator. And here we've got some pepperoni. And I just typically use whatever I have in the refrigerator for the pizza. If anyone has something very specific they want, they can go out to the store and get it. Got some onion here. We'll do a little of that. And, of course, mozzarella. Now to bake these pizzas, you want to set your oven to 475 degrees. If you find that your oven runs a little low, set it up to 480 even, but definitely 475. Now for a small pizza of this size, I've made it kind of thin. This is about a 7-minute pizza. It doesn't take long at all. If you use that half of the dough, the family size, you're looking at roughly 11 to 13 minutes for that whole size pizza to cook. So it really depends on the size and the thickness. If you take the small pizza and you roll it out quite thick, you know, 1/4 inch thick to make it almost a deep dish pizza, you're going to probably need to cook that a little bit longer. But as a rule of thumb, the small ones are 7 to 8 minutes, depending on how small you make them. And the large ones are roughly 11 to 13 minutes. But keep an eye on it and kind of check it out as you're first learning what it takes in your oven and what these sizes are, what sizes are good for you and how long they cook. But at any rate, I'm going to get this in the oven and then we're going to check on it again and see what we've got. Okay, we've got the pizza out of the oven now. It took about 7 minutes. I'm gonna slide. Don't want to slide off. And this is what it comes out like, just any other pizza. It looks fantastic. I'm going to slide it right onto a cutting board. And there you have it. Homemade pizza, which is really delicious. I hope you give it a try. Let me know what you do with your pizzas. And enjoy.